Emily had always been fascinated by numbers. As a mathematics professor at a prestigious university, she dedicated her life to the beauty and intricacy of mathematical patterns. Her favorite number was 17, a prime number, often considered mysterious and peculiar. It appeared in many contexts: the age when she first fell in love, the day of her birth, and even the apartment number she lived in during her university years. One cold winter evening, Emily was working late in her office. The campus was nearly deserted, with most students and faculty already gone for the holidays. As she sat hunched over her desk, a strange feeling washed over her, a sense of being watched. She glanced around her office, but there was no one there. Shaking off the eerie sensation, she returned to her work. Her phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from an unknown number. 17 days, it read. She frowned, puzzled. Who could be sending such a cryptic message? She decided to ignore it, thinking it was probably a prank. The next day, Emily went about her routine, trying to forget the strange message. However, as she was leaving her office, she noticed something odd. A piece of paper was taped to her door, with a single number scrawled on it, 17. Her heart raced. Was someone trying to play tricks on her? Over the next few days, the occurrences became more frequent and unsettling. She found the number 17 scribbled in chalk on the sidewalk outside her house, etched into the frost on her car's windshield, and even spelled out with pebbles on her front porch. Each time, her anxiety grew. Determined to uncover the truth, Emily began investigating. She spoke to her colleagues, friends, and neighbors, but no one knew anything about the mysterious number. Her research into the significance of 17 in history and folklore yielded fascinating but unhelpful results. In some cultures, it was considered an unlucky number, while in others, it was revered as sacred. One evening, Emily decided to delve into the archives of the university library, hoping to find some clue. She spent hours combing through old records, articles, and books. Just as she was about to give up, she stumbled upon an old newspaper clipping from 1917. The headline read, "Tragic disappearance on campus, 17 victims missing." Her blood ran cold as she read the article. It detailed a series of disappearances that had occurred exactly 101 years ago. 17 students and faculty members had vanished without a trace over the course of several days. Despite extensive searches and investigations, no clues were ever found, and the case remained unsolved. Emily's heart pounded as she realized the connection. She was being haunted by the number 17, but why? She felt a chill run down her spine as she remembered the cryptic message, 17 days. What if it was a warning? What if she only had 17 days before something terrible happened? The days passed in a blur of paranoia and fear. Emily became increasingly isolated, avoiding contact with others and staying locked in her house. On the 17th day, she awoke with a sense of dread. She tried to go about her day as normally as possible, but her mind was consumed by the thought of what might happen. As evening fell, she received another message from the unknown number. Midnight. Her hands trembled as she read the single word. She glanced at the clock. It was 11:30 p.m. With a sinking feeling, she realized she had only 30 minutes left. Unable to sit still, Emily paced around her house, her mind racing. What could she do? Should she leave? Should she call the police? Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. She froze, her heart pounding in her chest. Who could it be at this hour? Slowly, she approached the door and peered through the peephole. There was no one there. Confused, she opened the door cautiously. To her horror, she saw the number 17 scrawled in blood-red paint on the doorstep. She slammed the door shut and backed away, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the house into darkness. Emily's fear reached a fever pitch as she stumbled through the dark, searching for a flashlight. She found one and turned it on, the beam casting eerie shadows on the walls. As she made her way to the living room, she heard a faint whispering sound. She strained to listen, her heart pounding in her ears. The whispering grew louder, filling the room with an otherworldly presence. She shone the flashlight around, but saw nothing. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she noticed a figure standing in the doorway. She turned the flashlight towards it, revealing a ghostly apparition. It was a young woman, her face pale and eyes hollow. She pointed a bony finger at Emily and whispered, 17. Emily screamed and stumbled backward, dropping the flashlight. She scrambled to her feet and ran to the front door, fumbling with the lock in her panic. She finally managed to open it and ran outside, her breath visible in the cold night air. She ran through the deserted streets, not knowing where she was going. All she knew was that she had to get away. As she ran, she heard the whispering voices following her, growing louder and more insistent. Desperate, she ducked into an alley and hid behind a dumpster, trying to catch her breath. The whispering voices seemed to surround her, filling her mind with a cacophony of sound. She covered her ears, but it did little to drown out the noise. Just as she thought she couldn't take it anymore, the whispering stopped. She opened her eyes and saw that the alley was empty. She cautiously stepped out from behind the dumpster, her heart still racing. As she made her way back to her house, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. When she finally arrived home, she saw that the number 17 was no longer on the doorstep. She entered the house and found that the lights were back on. Relieved, she collapsed onto the couch, exhausted. She closed her eyes and tried to calm her racing heart. As she drifted off to sleep, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was still wrong. In the morning, Emily woke up to find everything seemingly back to normal. She tried to put the events of the previous night behind her, but the memory of the ghostly apparition and the whispering voices haunted her. She went about her day, but the sense of unease lingered. That evening, she received another message from the unknown number. "It's not over." Her blood ran cold as she read the words. She realized with a sinking feeling that the nightmare was far from over. Over the next few days, the occurrences started again. She found the number 17 in various places, and the whispering voices returned. Each night, the ghostly apparition appeared, pointing and whispering 17. Desperate for answers, Emily delved deeper into the history of the disappearances. She discovered that each victim had received similar warnings and had experienced the same haunting occurrences. The pattern was clear: she was the next target. Determined to break the cycle, Emily decided to confront the ghostly apparition. She set up cameras and recording equipment in her house, hoping to capture evidence of the haunting. That night, she sat in the living room, waiting for the apparition to appear. At midnight, the lights flickered and went out. The whispering voices filled the room, and the temperature dropped. Emily gripped the flashlight tightly, her heart pounding. The apparition appeared in the doorway, its eyes fixed on her. "Why are you doing this?" Emily demanded, her voice shaking. The apparition didn't respond. It pointed a bony finger at her and whispered, 17. Emily felt a surge of anger. "What does it mean? Why are you haunting me?" The apparition's eyes seemed to bore into her soul. "You must stop it. The cycle must end." Emily's mind raced. What cycle? What was she supposed to stop? Before she could ask, the apparition vanished, and the lights came back on. Determined to find the truth, Emily continued her research. She discovered that the disappearances had started after a tragedy in 1917, when a group of students had accidentally summoned a malevolent spirit during a séance. The spirit had demanded 17 souls, and the disappearances had started soon after. Emily realized that the spirit was using her to fulfill its demand for souls. She had to find a way to break the curse. She reached out to paranormal experts and historians, seeking their help. With their guidance, Emily performed a ritual to banish the spirit. She gathered the necessary ingredients and followed the instructions carefully. As she chanted the incantation, the temperature in the room dropped, and the whispering voices grew louder. The apparition appeared, its eyes filled with rage. "You cannot stop it." Emily continued the ritual, her voice steady. The room shook, and the lights flickered. The apparition screamed, a sound that chilled Emily to the bone. With a final chant, she banished the spirit, and the room fell silent. Exhausted, Emily collapsed onto the floor. She had broken the curse, but the experience had left her shaken. The number 17 no longer haunted her, and the whispering voices were gone. Emily resumed her life, but the memory of the haunting lingered. She knew she had faced something beyond comprehension, and it had changed her forever. The number 17 had once been a symbol of mystery and beauty, but now it held a darker meaning.